back to the Now What podcast. This episode, I don't know how it's gonna go because I have a complete stranger in the building. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
Let me introduce you, man. This is my co-host. We call him No Swags. His name is Jonathan Grimes. And your name, I'm gonna fuck this up. I fucked it up 7 times already before we started recording. Tate Grealish.
Well done, man.
Grealish, I got it right?
Spot on.
Hey, how about that, man?
Yeah.
So I had for people that don't know, I had a Twitter and Instagram request I sent out. I thought it would be a cool idea to have somebody who's either a fan of myself or a fan of the show to come on just to talk about life, man, human to human, and just to interact and see where the conversation takes us, man. So I have no script in front of me. I have no format. I have no bio. So who are you, dog? I do have a request from my mother, though. She was super scared. Just don't murder me. You know what I'm saying? Or him.
I'll do my best.
I would appreciate that.
No promises, but
she was so scared. She's like, "What are you doing? You don't know these people."
I think he's good at not killing.
We don't know that yet. So what's up, man? What's your how old are you?
I'm 24 years old.
24 years old, youngin'.
Yes,
Don't even know you think you're old, but you're not, I promise.
No. Still a lot to learn.
Yeah, man. So you're 24 years old and you're from, where you from?
I was born in San Francisco, but raised here mostly in Houston. So,
Okay.
H-Town.
H-Town, H-Town bound. Okay. So what brought you to be interested in coming on the podcast, man?
Well, I mean, a big fan of your play, obviously. You know, as a Texans fan, you tearing up the Colts. I fucking love because I went to college in Indiana. So,
oh, word.
Oh yeah, so I love that. But no, I mean, a big fan of you, and then also especially like afterwards, you know, your how vocal you are as an athlete, and also, but even more than that, just how curious you are as a person. It's really cool, and you know, I've been a big follower, a big fan from that, and your podcast on Joe Rogan was awesome.
Oh, I appreciate you saw that.
That was dope.
Yeah.
And then I've listened to your podcast now, and I mean, it's really cool. You're a guy who's incredibly humble for all the places you've been, and just curious in the world, man, and you want to see the world learn. It's great,
man. I appreciate it, man. It was going to be an interesting vetting process for when I said I wanted a fan on the show. So like the only vetting process I didn't even have anything. I said just shoot me a DM if you're interested. Usually that's a telltale sign because I got some crazy shit in the DMs.
I can imagine.
Just wild. Many sexual advances that I had to block people on from both genders. But you had an interesting way of going about it. I could tell by how you answered me or how you responded in my DMs that you're a very well thought out, well spoken. How do you say that? Meticulous human being.
Oh, I would not say I'm meticulous. I
Really?
like to think I'm well thought out. Oh no, you should see my room.
You
man.
had hyphen. You had bullet points to. It was like we could talk about this, and this. This is what I feel about this, and this. And I was like, you know, that's a fucking guy I want to talk to. Man.
Well, I don't know, man. I want to be a good summary of it, and want to be clear. And so, no, I mean, and this is dope that you're doing this, man. I think this is really cool.
That's fun, man. So, so you were talking a little bit earlier, and you brought. Let me show people on YouTube. That's for people that are not. That are just listening. He brought Chunmi green tea. So he brought a package of green tea, man. So no plug, man. This is just love. I appreciate you bringing me a gift. You the first. Is he the first guest to bring a gift?
Basically, yeah.
I think you're the first. White people, man. Very generous. No, so you said it was from India.
Yes, sir.
You spent time in India.
I do, yeah. So for work, I work with an outsourcing group in India. So.
Okay, so outsourcing means you go get work from other places, correct?
So yeah, so I work with a big insurance company. We have a big operation in India, about 3,000 employees. And,
oh wow!
Yeah, and so what
do you sell? Are you selling? What kind of insurance are you selling? Are you allowed to talk about it?
I can't. I won't say the company. I can talk about the industry. It's
Got
going to
you.
be boring as hell. It's title insurance.
Okay. So for people that don't, hey, everybody has a story, man.
That's true.
What is title insurance? Because I've heard it many times.
Okay, so
but I don't know what it is.
it's boring, but it's actually really important. So it's like when you buy a house, like we insure the fact that like the deed that you got when you signed your house.
Okay.
Like
I just bought a house, by the way.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank you, man.
So I'm assuming you signed the deed and it was through escrow and stuff. And all that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. So what we do is like we make sure like we keep a record of all of all the deeds, all judgments, and any kind of like liens or loans you may have on that house or on that property.
Right.
So that way, like we know when Arian Foster buys a house. You are the one buying it from the house. The guy you bought it from, he owned it before, and like with absolute certainty, you have that.
So there's many companies. You guys aren't just the overseers of the entire thing, or you can't.
No.
Okay, I have no idea how that shit works.
There's a couple of them. And I mean, there's a lot of layers of it. You know, some people doing the work, some people manage
small
the documents.
boutiques, big institutions. Okay, same old same.
But yeah, we work for, at least I work for a big one, and because of that, you manage massive amounts of like legal documents and stuff, and so we got to enter all of that into a database, and so. That's what we do in India, and so it's
so yeah. How did that bring you to India? I don't understand.
Well, so what they do is massive amounts of data entry and stuff, and they're very inexpensive. The work there is very inexpensive. So that's what I do now.
So do you outsource workers from India to help you with the database?
Yeah, exactly.
So you guys are doing what Trump said he's bringing back, jobs to America.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You guys are taking jobs away from American work. I'm just fucking with
Make
you.
India great again.
Trying to make India great again. But I think, that's a huge. I think every big company does this. Every big company goes and outsources work because the labor's cheaper and they don't have to deal with a lot of the same demands. I mean, are you allowed to talk about this? I don't want to get you in trouble.
Oh yeah, no, for sure,
Okay,
for
cool.
sure. And actually, like, and I went through it was a moral quandary for me a little bit because
Right.
I mean, I like to think I'm patriotic and I want to support our country and.
Right.
And you don't want to take jobs away.
You gotta keep the lights on.
I mean, you do, and also like one thing that we've seen is actually like we really haven't like eliminated our U.S. staff at all from it, and actually you see we've been able to grow the company a lot, and like the people that we work with like onshore, they love it because it's like, oh great man, there's a bunch of like here's a bunch of labor, or here's a bunch of work that like we don't want to do, we won't be able to focus on other things, and they're able to do it, and also one thing too, when you go there, and actually like the first company I worked there was like a data analytics company, and so that was my initial experience there, but. Like when you go there,
so data analytics is basically the funny shit. I've heard all these terms before, and I've never had somebody sit across and say, "What the fuck does that mean?" So, data analytics basically you compile, I guess, data from whatever company it is. This is and in this instance, what is the data that you're compiling?
Well, if we're gonna talk about data analytics, let's talk about my first job with there.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So the first job that I got it like directly out of college, and they had this program they called the Columbus.
Tell me, what did you go to school for?
I went to Indiana for business, to study finance and economics.
Okay.
Yeah, and so
I want to have a conversation about economics soon.
I'd love to. Yeah.
We'll rock in a minute.
So I got this job, and they had this program called it the Columbus program because Christopher Columbus was trying to find India, unsuccessful, but
Right.
so they called it that, and so they
Hold on.
Yeah.
They call it the Columbus program because he's trying to find India.
yeah.
Oh my fucking.
Yeah, and this is an
God.
Indian company too. They thought they were pretty funny.
Oh my God. So it was, who was it? Oh, it was Louis C.K. I know he just got ousted for that sexual harassment stuff, but he
he's
had still funny, had a funny fucking joke where he said, so long time ago, people landed in America and thought that they were Indians, and they weren't. And he said, are you guys Indians? He goes, no, we're not Indians. He goes, you're Indians. And he said, and we still call them that. Funny shit, but I'm sorry, go ahead. Man, go ahead.
So we went over there. So it was a group of like 20 or so. Like each month they brought up like 20 or so like U.S. students like right after graduating. We go there, and so I lived in Bangalore for about 5 months.
Right.
And they house us there, and go and you learn a lot of like data analytics, and that's like anything from like statistical modeling to creating databases and stuff, and data mining, and you know again you've all heard a lot of these buzzwords and stuff.
So I mean, what are you trying to? Are you? Is there a initiative like they'll hire you to pick apart certain data and be like, we want you to find out about this?
Yeah, exactly. So the company that I worked for, it was kind of like it was like a business consulting company, but then would use like, as they said, data driven solutions and stuff.
Okay.
So like one of the projects that I worked on was we're working with like a client was like a major credit card company.
Okay.
And so they were using like their merchant database of so they would know so and so bought whatever at this location and this time, and like making like a searchable database for that, so that way like the credit card company, they could sell that to like merchants, say like a tire store, and they could say, all right, who bought tires in the last 2 years, or like spent X amount of money like at a tire shop, because then all right 2 years, that's the length of a tire. It's not.
No. It's smart. So you basically it's what we should. Let me take that back because it's an interesting point I want to get to. You use they use data to basically mold their behavior in the future, correct?
Yeah.
So have you ever seen anything in data analytics where the numbers don't necessarily match up with what they should be doing?
Oh, like if it's counterintuitive. Let me think of that.
Because we find that a lot, and I'm not sure how it works in business. I think business is a little more black and white, but when you're dealing with like social issues or something like that, and you see like the data compiled about how many arrests, and not to get political off jump, but like how many arrests of black people towards white people or harassment or whatever the case may be. Like you get into this like how much can you quantify before it becomes pure subjectivity. You know what I mean? And in business, do you see anything like that, or is it more cut and dry?
I mean, there's some stuff that's cut and dry. I think the thing that you see most in business, at least what I saw, and there's definitely tons of examples that I can't think of right now. But like one is, you get like a level of like optimization or something, and so you reach a point that it's like, if we keep cutting the price lower than this or something, or for example, if we keep cutting like costs to a certain level, like you're gonna like lose efficiency.
Right.
And so like a lot of times, like when you really look at the data, you realize, hey, you know what? Actually, like we really should like keep our salary, for example, like that, like pretty high for something like that.
Right.
And so you'll see that. I'm trying to think. Like so that'll be a thing. Then you take your mom.
My mom just called me on Facebook. It'd be funny as hell. Hold on.
Let's do it.
Okay. Hey, Ma. So my mom's called. Yeah, no, you're on live. We definitely recording right now.
Oh my God, who are you talking
This is the stranger that you was worried because was gonna kill me.
Hey there, Mr. Sizemore.
He knew you were Mrs. Sizemore. That's impressive as shit.
Oh hell yeah, man.
No, it's not. It's creepy.
I listened to your wonderful podcast. That's not creepy.
He said, I listened to your wonderful podcast. That's not creepy. Look at you shitting on a man that was a fan of you.
I'm sorry, but I don't agree with him just doing random strangers. Sorry, but I'm glad you're safe.
No, I understand.
Don't try no shit, because I'll hunt you down.
Yes,
Mom,
ma'am.
he's harmless. He has a comb over. It's all good. But let me get back, Mom. That's hilarious though that you called during this time.
I'm sorry.
No, you're
I
fine.
didn't mean to bust that.
You're fine.
Okay,
All right. That shit is hilarious. So back to what we were talking about, because it's still very interesting to me. Let me jump because I wanted to hit this. You went to school for economics.
Yeah.
I never formally studied economics. I formally went to school to try to get to the NFL. And so I did not take advantage. I really couldn't take advantage of the educational opportunities. But I always studied outside of my own, so I did what I could. But how far deep did you study in economics? Like how deep down the rabbit hole did you fall?
It was business economics, so in terms of like a lot of economic theory, we didn't get super deep. Took courses on game theory, took courses like on econometrics.
Game theory is fucking interesting.
It is, man, and it seems simple, but that
Type
shit
in
is
game theory.
fucking hard. Like,
So-
when it gets heavy, like
So so for the people that don't know, and I'm one of those people, I've briefly read up on this subject, but it's so intriguing. Like, can you give a brief description of what game theory is?
I mean, it's just optimizing your strategy based on a determined amount of payouts.
So and then you can mathematically there's
Or logically
yeah,
better. Yeah.
Okay, so logically you can equate. There's a way to do it. That's most beneficial.
Exactly.
Is that a good way? Of,
If we can pull up the prisoner's dilemma, because that's like the basic
I've never heard
like
about this
game theory. Oh, this is
the prisoner's dilemma.
yeah.
Google knows
Yeah,
what
this
I'm
is
thinking.
like day one game theory stuff, but
Okay.
it's interesting and it describes.
So zoom in a little bit. So it says prisoner's dilemma is a standard example of a game analyzed in game theory that shows why two completely rational individuals might not cooperate, even if it appears that it's in their best interest to do so. It was originally framed by Merrill Flood and Melvin Dressers, who've heard of working at Rand in 1950. So, could you summarize that? Because I'm unfamiliar with the prisoner's dilemma.
So actually, if you don't mind, can you go to images? Because go
to images.
The Venn diagram is kind of weird. Let's see if they got something of it. Okay, yeah. So go to the one on the top left.
Top left.
Yeah. So basically, the idea is like if you have two prisoners sitting, or two guys who just arrested for something, and they're sitting there and they're being questioned. Like they have an option of confessing or lying and saying they didn't do it.
Right.
Right. And so as you see, like the numbers on it, like you got the payouts for each player. So
right.
the payout for prisoner 1 is all the numbers on the left. The payout for prisoner 2 is all on the right. So if they both so you have two options. Right?
And they know the rules to the game.
Well, in theory, I mean, they're both being questioned there, and they know, okay, I can either lie or I confess.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They know they can lie or tell the truth,
but they don't know what the other guy's doing.
Right. Okay.
Exactly. So when, so like if they both lie, they get a payout of -1 or something because they get basically off. They get off free because if they both lie, no one confesses, they can't get it. If one of them lies and says no, like we weren't there, and then the other guy confesses, the guy who confesses gets off free. The guy who lied. He gets busted, and so he gets a -10 payoff. But then if they both confess, they go -8. So, so it's advantageous to
it's basically so in layman's term because I mean
it's good to lie in this situation.
So you're familiar with this. So people that aren't like myself, so you have two guys and they're given this. You can either lie or confess, and if you both confess, you get the worst possible outcome.
Yeah.
If one of you lie and one of you confess, one of you is going to have a really good outcome, one of you is going to have a bad outcome.
Yeah. Well, but here's the thing though too. If you guys both confess, like if they both confess, it'll be less than if you lied and the other guy confessed. You know what I mean? Because it's like a -8 to -10.
Right.
So
That's rough.
Yeah. So I mean, it's really psychology almost.
Exactly.
It's psychology. So what does this tell us? What does game theory in the prisoner dilemma tell us?
There's a Nash equilibrium to it, and I apologize to my professor. I should remember this, but I can't. I mean, so like, what you should do if you ever get. So I guess the rule of this: if you ever get busted, you lie and just hope that you hope that your homemate lies too. So,
but no, I mean,
that's what my college degree. Degree taught me.
It's funny. It's funny that you bring this up because I have a saying I say like in business. I think. If like in business, 50% of good business is bad morals, right? So here you have like quantitatively, it's just the truth. Like I said that shit just off the whim, just as the shit I saw. Like if you do bad shit, but like selfishly trying to get ahead, like you're gonna do good in this economy, in this society. And here is it's called game theory, and it's developed over years of mathematical study that says, that's basically what's gonna happen.
Well, this is one example of that. Yeah.
But, am I far off in my thinking though?
You know what? Actually, in certain ways, no. And this is like the whole idea of like classical economics, right?
Right.
And it sounds counterintuitive, but like the theory is like the best way to have like a prosperous society is if everybody acts like for their own selfish needs. Because if you're like, I need to feed, well, stay with me. Stay with me. At least like for a functioning marketplace economy.
Okay, I was because when you say prosperous, what do you mean? You have to define.
Well, I mean prosperous in the way
functioning marketing.
Functioning market, in that you can you can trade your skills.
Okay.
And so I mean, if you're saying I gotta put food on my table,
and so do you.
Exactly.
I'm with you.
I can do it. I have a skill, and I will trade my skill for your skill.
Okay.
In exchange of ideas and services, but. That's a very theoretical, easy thing.
Because some people don't feel like they have skills.
That's true.
And see, I mean, so like I read up a little bit about Marxism, and Marxism it gets a real bad rap, but from what I've read, and the Republicans gonna be like, "You're a Marxist," it makes so much sense to me. So, I'm gonna butcher a lot of this because I didn't get it.
How you spell it?
Just Karl Marx, M-A-R-X.
Yeah.
So basically his thing is he didn't like capitalism. He didn't like capitalism because he felt like the worker didn't feel like he had value in the work that he was doing. Correct? And so what was his basic? See, I'm blanking on his.
Well, I mean, he's like the father of communism.
Yeah, communism. That's what it is. So he was basically like community payout, basically, right?
Yeah.
I think this was interesting to me about Marxism and just ideologies about left and right. So it's interesting that a lot of right-leaning Republicans look at Marxism and communism as the devil, right? But their end goal is communism. The majority of them are Christians. If you die and go to heaven, is that not a communist state? Is heaven not a communist state?
All right, that's an interesting way to put it. I haven't heard it that way, but I mean, yes and no.
Tell me how God's not a dictator.
Because everyone's praising God in their own unique ways up there, but they're praising God.
But that's what. But there is no higher, there is no lower. Everything just is in heaven, theoretically, according to its description of, and I'm talking about Christian Bible. It is a dictatorship, and I'm not saying that there's any bad he's doing, whatever. That we can argue that all day. But in essence, what they yearn for is communism. They want a dictatorship. They just want it to be the Holy Jesus Christ of Nazareth, aka God.
They want everlasting love, right? Like that's the idea. They want eternal, everlasting love. And so the whole idea of like economic schools of thought, so communism versus capitalism, is how to the expression is how to allocate scarce resources. Because the idea, like at the end of the day, we only have so much bread, we only have so much gold, but in theory, in heaven, you have infinite of everything. So communism works because you have eternal love, you have eternal life in that stuff. So there's an infinity aspect to it.
So are you playing devil's advocate, or you believe this?
Oh no.
Okay, no, I'm because I would argue that point with, play devil's advocate, please, because I love to be challenged in my beliefs. So they're worried about the amount of product there is to go around. Is that because if there's infinite amount of resources, then yeah, there should be enough for everybody, which is what the fuck heaven is.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, but that's why, I mean, you don't if you have infinity of everything, you don't need a market saying, hey man, let me sell you that. Like, no, I have infinity of it. I'm not going to pay for anything.
But to me, is that not the goal of I don't want to say the goal of communism. I think that was the goal of Marxism, of Karl Marx. I think that's his ideal. And a lot from from an ideology standpoint, and thinking about it, in a perfect world, of course communism works. We shouldn't need money. You should be able to say, all right, we know that you're going to input X. I'm going to give you Y from that, and it makes sense. But unfortunately, enacting that in law and in reality is much more challenging. So something you could look at the Soviet Union versus the United States during the Cold War. And one of the biggest challenges that they had is they had to set a certain price for all items. And if you're having one store, that's fine, but over the whole society, that's millions and millions of prices that you got to properly balance and allocate. And the idea of having one person or one group of people deciding that, just the logistics of it become so incredibly challenging. So that basically the market has to set the value.
It does. And at this point this is the least imperfect way we got.
And I would agree. And I think a lot of people that agree with capitalism say that. They'll say it's not perfect, but it's the best we have right now. And I don't buy it. I just don't. I feel like we're not trying. That's not our goal. Our goal is to be a juggernaut in that marketplace. Our goal. We're brought up not to. Hey, how can we revolutionize commerce? How can we revolutionize economics? How can we revolutionize currency? That's not our goal as kids. Our goal is how can you sustain your life? How can you take advantage of the people who are buying product?
Well, I think a different way to look at it is the goal should be how do we make.
He goes with these inspirational.
Hey man, if you can think of a better way and believe you can make a better way,
so people that are just listening, he pulled up a Swag pulled up a picture that says conceive, believe, achieve, which is what I mean. I agree, right? But our society it's not built. Our infrastructure doesn't say innovate. Our infrastructure says survive.
Well, the idea though is in a capitalistic society, in a pure society where you're able to if you're out there sort of survive, you say, hey, how can I survive? One of the best ways to give yourself a competitive advantage and give yourself an advantage is to innovate. And so that's one of the ideas, is that like an open market like is incredibly innovative. And I'll argue that most of like society changing innovations have come from, you know, from business in some capacity. So for example, like Rockefeller, right? We all talk about him. He's, you know, this massively rich person and, you know, this huge oil tyrant. Now, one of the things that he did was he revolutionized like the oil and gas industry.
Right.
And he you know, changed, like, you know, he created like big tankers that you could do it in. It was, I think it's the mid flow of like the oil chain. And so something that he did, you know, a lot of people complain, oh, he brought, you know, he's so, you know, singularly wealthy and has all of his money. But what he did, though, in his achievements, is he was able to bring inexpensive gas to everybody. And so what we were able to do is suddenly, like, kerosene lanterns that were super expensive and, you know, only the rich could have light. Now suddenly light was hugely available, and then everybody could be prosperous. So we saw a massive boom in productivity because you could suddenly start working at night. Everybody could.
Right.
And so the idea is that he innovated there so he can make a lot of profit. He followed his selfish intuition or his selfish goals.
Right. But when I say our infrastructure isn't set for innovation, I don't necessarily mean innovation doesn't come out of our infrastructure. Most definitely, people that are people that have opportunities, right? So Rockefeller, I'm not sure his background. I'm not 100%. I know who he is, know what he did, but I never really delved into his character. But I'm pretty sure he comes from a wealthy family. I would be.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that.
Well, let's read about him real quick. Yeah. Just to type in JD.
Born in a large family in
Bam. So was born into a large family in upstate New York and was shaped by his con man father and religious mother. Those are basically synonyms. His family moved several times before eventually settling in Cleveland, Ohio. Rockefeller became an assistant bookkeeper. So, I mean, he had opportunity. And so that's what I mean, right? So our society favors people who are handed opportunities, right? So my buddy always says this. He does really well in business. And he says in order to be successful, you have to have three miracles happen, and one of them is just pure luck. Like you just have to have lady luck on your side. And I was saying in a podcast earlier I was doing that Steve Jobs just happened to live in one of the neighborhoods that had computers at the time. So he had that opportunity. So when I say our infrastructure, our school system was built from the Ford factories. That's where the Bell system came from. So Bells, you go from class to class. It came from the Ford factories. Yeah. So we are molded to be workers. We're not molded to be innovators and thinkers. And it's because these standardized tests, these IQ tests, all of these things that are kind of measurements of what whoever views as intellect. Who was it? Einstein said it. He said, if you judge a fish how he climbs, if you judge a fish how he climbs a tree, something like that. Get the quote right, so I'm not fucking.
No, I think it's like if you judge everybody by climbing a tree, like the monkeys didn't do a lot better than the fish, or something like that.
Is that what he did?
I don't know, something, but
he goes straight to the images.
Because they got nice stuff.
Everyone is a genius, but if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it's stupid. I agree with that 100%. And I'm not saying Einstein was Einstein, but he was. He was a brilliant man. Flat earthers don't like him, but he was brilliant, man.
I saw you talking shit about some of them today.
Oh my God, it was the worst,
That's
man.
ridiculous,
I'm sitting here arguing that's a whole nother conversation. I wish he was you know what? I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna get a flat earther on this podcast, and we are gonna hash it the fuck out.
Hey, bring Kyrie.
I don't think he's a flat earther, man.
You think he's just trolling?
I think he just made a statement on some. I haven't seen any evidence, and it blew up. And he's like, "Oh shit, I've never really thought about it." I think that's what it was. Because I've never heard anything other than his original statement. I never really. But anyway, so if our school system was set up to find out what kids are good at, that changes the narrative.
Oh, 100%. It's so unbelievably flawed.
Right.
And also, like, I didn't know that the Bell system came from 4 days, but I know apparently the 3 R's, that came all the way back in Victorian England. Like,
Really?
yeah. And
What is
and
the 3 R's?
reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Oh,
That's
okay,
only
okay.
that's only
Right,
one of them even starts with an R.
Right.
But
Yeah, I was about to say.
yeah, I know it's yeah.
So unfamiliar with the 3 R's.
I think that's a pretty good sign that it's outdated.
Yeah, no.
It's not arithmetic.
I'm not 100% sure on the bell system. That's just, I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of folklore what I grew up hearing. It could be right,
Yeah.
it could be wrong. But like, it's still, our system is not set up to
It's
innovate, man.
hugely outdated. It's hugely outdated. We're not taught. I mean, we're all taught to be the same. You know, we're
Right.
taught the same thing until high school, and then it's like, oh, go to college when you're 18, 19, and 20. That's when you're supposed to figure out your life.
And
that's
that's
when you're supposed to figure out your
ass
dream. That's
backward. I'm
stupid,
30
man.
People
years
aren't
old.
doing it then anyway.
That's what I'm
either.
saying. You just
Yeah,
looking for,
you
you just
don't-
looking for something to hump, like straight
Yeah,
up.
you're trying to get fucked up. Like that's it. Like
Natty Ice.
Yeah.
I know he's a Natty Ice drinker. I know he was. You look like a Natty Ice drinker,
I
man.
had a couple.
That's hilarious, man. So, you study all these economics, and then you go over to India, and so you study. What did you go to school for? You went to economics
In finance.
and finance,
Yeah.
which are that's interesting. And then you go to a third world country to go work. So, what is your experience like coming from an affluent country to a third world country and seeing kind of the social issues here, and then going over there and seeing the social issues there? What is your experience like?
So I mean, it's different, obviously, in everything, and you know, and then also at the same time, it's like really similar. You know, I mean, we like, you know, at the end of the day, we're pretty much all the same. You know, they love their moms just like we do, and actually
right.
even more so. They call them every day. It's pretty dope. But
How do they view the white man over there?
dude, we're fucking celebrities.
Really?
Yeah, there's no other way to put it. Yeah, it's insane. Like when I walk around, like people will come up and ask to take pictures with me.
Just because you white?
Yeah, just because I'm white. Like we go to the top.
Fucking crazy.
Yeah, dude, it's insane. So like I went to the Taj Mahal and and so like this like after a while I'm sitting there and like this kid like comes up like after a while and goes like, hey man, like can I take a picture with you? I'm like, yeah, sure. Like why not? Like I like the attention. Like and then like I take the picture and like I go to turn around and there's a line of like 15 people. Like I'm some celebrity, and like sure enough, they all go and like.
So
take
it's just more
pictures.
like, I've never seen one of you.
Literally,
before.
yeah, because like a lot of the people, like if they're from a poor
So
village like in India, they
like,
only.
yo, look, I swear I was with this white dude. Check it out. Look.
Oh yeah. No, the best one of that is my buddies and I. We were in the south part. We were in Kerala, and like the south part of it, we're like grabbing like lunch at this hotel or something, and this dude comes up and he's like, "Oh hey man, like can I like take a picture with you guys?" So like I stand up like thinking like, "Oh yeah, sure," and then he goes down, sits in my seat. Like leans back, has his buddy take a picture, like with like the other 3 of my buddies, like sitting there, and then gets back up and like, "Oh, thanks, man." So he's gonna like post it on Facebook, like, "Yeah, I was hanging out with a bunch of white dudes."
Wow.
Yeah, dude,
That's fucking bananas.
it's fucking wild. Yeah.
What is that like? How does that make you feel? Because you're definitely being objectified.
Oh, I guess, yeah. I mean, I kind of like the attention. I
Yeah,
thought it was
no,
funny,
I
but there were other guys who like didn't like it, and there were other guys who like were like after a while they were like, "No, if you're gonna do it, like pay me money."
Because you know what it is you're the minority.
Yeah.
And so like, what, I mean, did that ever register?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
So
we say that,
what is it like being the minority somewhere? I'm
mean,
not like shitting
yeah,
on you.
yeah.
I'm just asking because like I mean
Oh,
in
yeah.
America nobody's gonna come up to you and be like, hey man, you're
Yeah.
white. This is crazy.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
exactly.
saying?
Yeah,
Because like
yeah.
I remember I was in high school. I was dating this white girl and super cool family. Love her people. We were in good contact to this day. But I remember her sister. I had a fro at the time. I was growing my hair. I'm growing it back out, by the way. But I was growing it out, and she's like, "Can I touch your hair?" And I was like, "Sure, man. Like, go ahead." And she touching my hair, and she goes, "Oh, it's just like real hair." And I'm like, "What the fuck?" It is real hair. What the fuck are you talking about? But like, you get that everywhere you go. Like, if you're around like white people who haven't been around black people a lot, they get that. Let me. Have you ever had anybody touch your hair? Yeah. See. So like, it's normal because like we're not the norm, right?
Yeah.
So like, what how does that feel being a minority?
I mean, it was like, yeah, it's definitely weird. I mean, I walk down the street and like, I mean, a lot of people stare at you. Now, like, I would say that like in Bangalore, it's not as much because like that's like the hub of like
City.
IT and stuff.
Right,
yeah,
right,
and
right.
so you know, like you that's probably like the highest percentage of whitey. But I mean, you got like I mean, it's like I think one thing that was like kind of cool at least is like. Because all the dudes they act like with like a big like very curious smile and stuff,
Right.
and so it's like, all right, cool, like I'm making their day better, like because like for some reason they're they're fucking interested by it.
Right.
And so I mean, like it was kind of cool, but I mean, I'll be honest, I never like got any negative sentiment from it. I mean, the only other thing is people will stare at you, but also like there's a different like cultural like aspect of staring. Like, you know, in the United States, like it's weird to stare at people and like make eye contact, but there, like, man, they'll just go.
It's normal, really. It's
Oh
normal
yeah,
to stare over there.
it's totally normal and stuff. So
I didn't
like,
know that.
yeah, I think that is like in most like Asian countries too.
Really?
Yeah. So like that was a little different, but I mean, it was a little odd, and I will say actually after a while too, like it gets like a little bit like impersonal, and I'm like, hey, like
It's like space wise.
Yeah,
I noticed that
yeah.
when I went overseas once in Germany, and like we went to a restaurant, and I looked in the restaurant. It was packed. It was full, and so I was like, I sat down on the bench, and there were people who were like seating people. And so I sat down. They're like, no, come on, we have a seat. And I'm like looking in. I was like, no, the fuck you don't. And so they sat us with a couple that was already eating. And I said, what the fuck? Like they're eating. Like what do you mean? And then the person who I was with at the time was like, no, like here. Like there's no space. Like if their seats open, like you sit down.
Oh, it's like that in like New York too.
Really?
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's fucking dense there, man.
Never seen that in New York.
Really?
You at a table and somebody sit down at your table talking about some what's up?
Well, yeah. If
It
it's a
depends
longer
on what
table,
kind of
yeah,
restaurant.
man,
Like
yeah.
a nice, but if it's just like a Starbucks, maybe.
No. I'm talking
like
about
a pizzeria, like
no,
not a steakhouse.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like a restaurant where they're seating people. Like imagine going to
that's
like I don't know, Outback Steakhouse. I couldn't think of another chain, but imagine going to Outback. It just popped in my head, bro. What you gotta get out?
I'm just saying, when the last time you been out? That's all I'm saying.
What are you trying to say, bro?
I'm just saying.
What are you trying to say?
You try to have a steak, you go down there.
Fuck no. You're right. Matter of fact, I wouldn't go there for a blooming onion. I don't even like onions, man. Anyway, so man, what's the biggest culture shock that you had living overseas in India from here to there? Aside from being a white celebrity.
Yeah. Aside from that, I'll say one of the biggest things, man, is like we take our waste management for such granted. Like you.
Yeah.
Like they like there's
right.
there's like and you know and I do not want to rip on the country because it is a beautiful country. I mean it is a wonderful place.
Yeah.
But this is like
Flaws
is like
are flaws.
Yeah, and this is the reality though also of like the third world. So like they don't have a waste management system. So they got like piles of trash on the street and they got stray dogs and like cows coming and like eating out of it and stuff. And then like the way they get rid of it is they burn it. So like when you're like walking home,
Don't
like,
we do though? But we have like a landfill, don't we?
we got a landfill. So but I mean
Tell me that, because I mean I would love to like tell me
Yeah.
what do we do with trash? Well, go ahead. What do Americans do with trash?
Yeah, well, I mean, they say we put it in a landfill. I got a half baked theory that
Shoot.
we do the same thing with recycling too. Is
Right.
like we put recycling and stuff, and we put it in the blue cans to make us feel better.
Right.
They pick it up and they just bring it right to the same fucking
the same
landfill.
shit? Really?
Just throw it in. I have no evidence on this
I'm
yet,
about
but
to say,
I'm
bro,
convinced.
that'd be terrible PR.
Oh, they do it in the dead of night. Yeah. All those recycling plants, all bullshit.
According to the NSWMA, which I think stands for the National. I'm struggling with the acronym, man, because they don't tell us. Waste Management Association, National something Waste Management Association. Modern landfills require soil to be added to cover fresh additions of waste every day. The solid waste layer becomes laced with these strips of dirt. Much of the trash that ends up in landfills also be recycled or reused in other ways. So it doesn't really. So we just.
So no, yeah. So I think what we do is like we take like I mean because the idea if you have like food waste or biodegradable waste, you
Right.
could just
Okay,
put
so-
that. Yeah. You,
So some gets recycled or recovered and some gets burned, but the
Oh.
majority of it is buried in landfills. In this article, we examine how a landfill is made, what happens to the trash in the landfills, what problems are associated with the landfill, and you know what? And it's crazy that you said that. So like, I haven't thought about where my trash goes. I don't think ever. I don't think I've ever thought about where my trash goes.
No, dude, and there's so many things
in
like
the
that we
truck.
don't think about.
It goes in the truck.
Exactly, you put it in the
Fuck you
bin
mean?
and picks it up. Yeah,
What do you mean? It goes in the truck. Wow.
yeah. But going back to India though, there like so they burn their trash because they have nothing else to do. Like they have no
Right.
other way to handle it, and so like and because like frankly they're like more focused on other things. They're more focused on making sure that everybody's fed. They're more like focused on their day-to-day lives because they don't have the same luxuries that we do living in America. And so that's like like and that's something like when you talk about
what is their natural resource over there?
they got some oil, but mostly agriculture and then like IT services.
Okay,
I think are their biggest exports. And
textiles. Is it because of the amount of people that aren't there? Why that country isn't affluent, or is it corruption in the government?
It's the British, man. The British, they came over there and they raped the country. There's no other way of putting it.
Fucking white people, man.
Don't blame me, man. No, they were suppressing us Irish too. No, yeah. So like when the British came, they like literally took all the like all the jewels, all the natural resources there. They went around, they broke the thumbs of anybody who's like a skilled like weaver, like a skilled person, so that way they could only export textiles.
Oh my god!
Which was like notably less. Like
when was it? I mean, I'm fairly familiar, but when like what was?
This is mostly during like the 1800s and like early 1900s. So I think the partition, like when Gandhi was around, that was like in the 1940s and stuff, the 30s and 40s when they split. But yeah, so like India came, like Britain came, like they purposely like only made them like a textile exporter, so that way they couldn't like make any money on it, and like India was like a one of like the predominant like powers in that region,
right?
And they literally just fucking raped the country.
It's definitely a underlying theme here, man, going on. So how do you? So what is your because it's an interesting segue, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of white people in America feel like I'm not responsible for anything my ancestors did, which I would agree with. Mm-hmm. But I feel like a lot of white people reap the benefits of the business that was, right? So
100%.
So you do believe in that? Because I know a lot of... So what would you consider yourself politically before we get to this deep-ass conversation?
I'd probably libertarian.
Really? So you're a leftist?
Yeah. Socially, very much so. But like fiscally and spending, like, no. We should spend as little as possible.
So what brought you to your political ideals before we...
So, I was... my dad is a pretty staunch Republican, but
really,
well, economically, but again, socially, we always have been. Like growing up in the Bay Area, like some of our closest family friends,
San Francisco.
Yeah, some of our closest family friends are lesbians, and so like we just like we grew up forever, just like of course they should be married, like right. and it was like I mean, my whole political philosophy is like, don't be a fucking dick.
Yeah,
and like
life philosophy.
Yeah, and like if you do that, you like it makes sense. Like like don't be a dick, and so I don't like you have a right to choose. So that's kind of what got to me there, and then just the more I learned, and I don't know. At the same time though, like I have a lot of faith in like the social fabric of the United States.
You do?
I do. Like, well, I mean because. For example, I mean like the protests that you and Colin did, and like I mean like at least now, and I mean I'm not. We have so much farther to go, of course, but like not many other countries. Like I mean, there's no way you could pull shit like that in India.
That's true.
Yeah, and like and so I have faith that like socially, like without the government, for example, we can solve a lot of social issues by with things like that. But to me, the biggest concern is like. There's some economic aspects that like a government, for example, like having single payer, like universal healthcare would be like that.
So let's get into this. So because like when you and a lot of people, either they don't have time or they just don't understand or they just don't give a fuck. And either way, it's all good. Fair playing field. Basically, it breaks down to this: the average American doesn't really understand what political wars are really being played, and I feel like they just. Cling to sides because one or two things that they actually, which is why I remain bipartisan on pretty much all issues, or try to see both sides at least, right?
Unaffiliated with both sides.
Yeah, right. So if you look at like the economics of what you're talking about, basically what the left is saying is, or what the right is saying the left wants is bigger government. Right, more government involved in more of our personal lives, and the right is saying smaller government, right?
Not entirely anymore.
But see, and this is, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of contradictions in
Yeah.
both sides, which I think is, there needs to be another party. I think we've outgrown the two-party system.
The libertarians, man.
That's what
Like, yeah, I don't
So
get
are you a Bernie Sanders?
I'm not a Bernie Sanders guy.
Why aren't you a Bernie Sanders guy?
Because Bernie Sanders got the best heart in the game.
I would agree.
Undeniably.
Best heart in the
like,
game. Look at him go.
I mean, what he wants, like, yeah, what he
People's
wants,
champ.
like, he wants, seriously though. I mean, like, what he wants, of course, like, I mean,
Right.
we all want to
So
be.
what's your? I mean, I'm not a Bernie
Yeah.
Sanders. I won't say I'm not. I mean, I agree with. I honestly hasn't. I haven't been like dove into his policies, but like the stuff he says.
Medicare for all just would be too fucking expensive. Like, and things like that. Like he at the end of the day, in a lot of respect, and this is tough, and this is really
This
tough.
is where it gets. This is where it gets interesting to me. Medicare for all, right? Because I have a finance guy who handles a lot of my finances, and we have hour-long debates or just conversations about economics because I'm so far behind the game learning about this stuff. So basically, people in America make money, and the dollar isn't backed by anything else. It's not. It used to be backed by gold, and it's not backed by gold anymore.
Yep.
So basically, the government is just printing money, and the more money they print, the higher inflation rates go. Correct?
Correct.
So how far does this charade go? Because it's just a game. The marketplace is nothing more than people saying this cup is worth $3.
I mean, the whole idea is you have confidence in the American government being able to pay off their bonds. Like that's like the whole reason.
So when people say, I mean, this is a not a very well known fact. So when people say America is in debt, they're running up the national debt. When Trump says that
It's huge.
it's huge.
Believe me.
Believe me, it's never been bigger. Who is America in debt to?
So some of it is to people. A lot of
Literal individuals.
some individuals, but a lot of frankly, a lot of foreign individuals, and that's why he says China is because so for example, like when we say we produce this laptop, right?
Okay.
And we sell that to China, right? They spend $2,000 to buy it, right? Or well, actually, no. Better yet, let me flip that around. So they export stuff. So because we have as Trump says, we import a lot more than we export. Right. So let's say, let's use the same example. We import that laptop. So we pay from China. So we pay a Chinese company $2,000. They can't use those US dollars in China because they use the yen, and so they have to spend that in America in some capacity. Sometimes they can buy land, sometimes they can buy that, sometimes they can buy US backed securities, being bonds. And so that's where a lot of the debt is people buying that, and because every time, if they need more money, they just sell bonds, and a lot of them are foreign investors.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because I have a small idea of that, but it just doesn't affect my daily life like that. And I mean, I guess it does in essence, but I don't deal with that. And the majority of America doesn't deal with that on a day-to-day basis. So there's just these political talking points that they love to throw around.
Because we love to drink beer and sound smart around the fire.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, but I think these are conversations that. This is what I love about the internet is the internet globally connects everybody, and so the things that I would never have that I'm interested in, but it would have never crossed my radar, is shit like this. Like I'm super interested in economics and global economics and how it all works, which is interesting to me because. I was about to get on a tangent, but
Go, it's your podcast.
Show is. But I mean, when you think about historic civilizations, Rome, Egypt, Mesopotamia, whatever the case may be, they all fall. But no time in human history has the world been globally connected. So how can a civilization fall like that anymore?
Well, that's an interesting question. I don't know if it I don't think it can fall in the way that Rome crumbled.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
I think technology really we've escaped natural selection.
Oh, 100% we have.
And I'm kind of nervous about the future, and this is the purgatory of the future because the technology boom it's in its infancy, and we're kind of like just now. Holy shit, the internet.
And it's fucking terrifying.
Yeah, and so like the next steps of what the internet is gonna be, there's no telling.
Yeah.
I think, and this is a crazy theory, I think that eventually they're gonna find a way to connect human brain to technology.
Transcendent.
That was a beautiful movie.
No,
I love that movie.
100% we will. And like
I'm for it,
not
though.
not in like 100%
fucking
without a
for it.
doubt,
I'm
man.
for it.
You could be able to put a computer chip in there, and you will have every bit of Wikipedia in your brain already.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I already got it.
Well, the funny shit is that Wikipedia, every time I log on, now they ask for $15. I know. I gotta pay. You know, I use that shit so much.
No, give them like one, maybe three.
Nah, I gotta give. Like, how many times do we use Wikipedia every day?
Every day.
But everybody looks at it like, fuck that.
Yeah.
They'll
figure it out. 2 years ago.
Yeah,
They're good.
yeah, they'll figure it out. But like, I don't know. They're asking. I think I'm gonna give. If anybody listening, please go to Wikipedia. Give them at least $5, man.
Does
Give them a couple.
Wikipedia have a link to GoFundMe?
They do. I don't know if it's GoFundMe, but like if you type in Wikipedia right now, it'll pop up and says, "Hey,
Yeah.
we love giving you guys free shit.
I mean,
Help us give you free
Can
shit."
you look up GoFundMe on Wikipedia?
Yes.
What is GoFundMe? Wikipedia.
That's fucked up. What
got
is
an arrow.
GoFundMe?
They
It's
got
what you nigga. It's what you motherfuckers ain't doing.
It's got an arrow pointed at above. You're like,
no, fucking click here.
That's hilarious, man.
Oh, that's good. But yeah, back to technology, man. Like it's insane, and I think it's going to be like really disruptive for the job market, because I think like we're gonna.
I think
like,
initially,
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, but see,
but I, like nothing in this world, in the history of this world, grows without something dying. A snake sheds its skin, new skin grows, something has to die. So this economy, this market, this way of living has to go away because it's fucking stupid and it's insane. The way we live right now is so dumb. It's really dumb.
and I think-
it's efficient for in the broader sense of we're surviving and it allows people to trade goods, but it's just it's a barter system on steroids, and it's still barbaric in my opinion. We have technology to feed every mouth in this world. I have no doubts about that.
well, I agree with you there, and we definitely do. And honestly, actually, we're getting there. Like we've not to get technical with it, but like the starvation rates and like malnutrition and stuff has dropped immensely. Now, actually, the leading cause of death in the world is bad diet. How fucking insane is that?
That is ridiculous.
Yeah, and actually not surprising at all when you think about all the shit that we eat. But
But it's insane that people eat themselves to death.
yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's
Yeah,
crazy.
like China was like one of the most like malnourished countries like 30 years ago, and now I think they're number 3 in obesity behind
you
Mexico and
serious?
U.S. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah, man.
Go to obesity rates by country.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, it's huge. Like diabetes. I mean, diabetes like
It's a heart disease is the number one killer in America. I know that.
and it getting there in the world. It's
Let's see, obese countries by.
oh shit. Well,
That's cool, man.
I guess I can't compare Samoa.
That's why you need Wikipedia. We need a computer chip in your brain, man. Oh, here you go with the ads.
Nice little plug.
Yeah. No, that was a pop up. So go back to that. There you go. Click that. We just learned how to use the internet. 29 most obese countries in the world. Number 1 is there you go. Where they at?
Shit,
Go.
wow, my numbers are a bit off. But
Man, all of us are.
what, Saudi Arabia? Wow.
Hold on, man. What is this source? Scroll up.
What?
World fact.
No. Yeah, go back out.
Yeah, those are all like Middle Eastern. And,
I need a better source than that.
Yeah.
I need a better source. Let's see.
July 2017.
All right, world rankings on obesity. Let's see what that is. I mean, I'm still not 100% on the source.
How do you even know?
There are reputable sources for shit. I still fucking wow. Okay,
Oh.
so number 1 is the Cook Islands. I don't even know where that is. Where's the Cook Islands?
I think it's like off in New
They
Zealand.
be cooking too much over there.
Cook Islands, Palau. That sounds like a Samoa, Tonga.
Yeah.
Hey, I understand why they're obese. Have you ever had any kind of like island cuisine? Like
Heavy.
Oh my god,
It's
like
good.
Hawaiian, Tongan,
Yeah.
Samoan. It's so delicious. So let me just see where U.S. falls in this.
Yeah. Breeds thick dudes though. Those guys are huge.
Oh, Samoans and Tongans are we call them ooses back on the West Coast. Oos. Let me see. So no, it goes
All
right there.
So there's U.S. Oh, 19.
So we're 19th in
Yeah.
the world. How do they tally shit like this?
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. How do you even know?
How do you tally shit like this? Like I never
fat?
asked. Yeah. Walk around Galleria Mall.
Yeah.
Talking, you look obese.
But I also think like obesity though is all like body mass image. So like a lot of bodybuilders, like those guys are.
But
obese.
so it's also a little culturally biased, right? So like African Americans are naturally more stout because of years of breeding. Real shit. So like I remember there was like a body mass chart and I was in elementary. It was like high school where like if I was 6'1", I was supposed to be I think like 175 or something like that. How many 6'1", 175 black dudes you know? If you 6'1", you pushing 200.
That's true.
So like a lot of those.
That's not treated for race at all.
No, not to my knowledge. Not to my
Damn.
knowledge. Not to
That's
my
fucking
knowledge.
ignorant.
It could. I mean, welcome.
Good point.
welcome. Yeah, I don't know. Getting lost in facts is tough, man. I always tell people like you have to understand where your information is coming from, and you have to. You have to at least try your hardest to get the best reputable source, without it being biased, and that's hard in itself. And that's what I was talking about earlier with like those analytics we were talking about.
Yeah.
If you're doing analytics for anything, like you're leaving out variables. You have to leave out.
Dude, that is
variables.
the number one lesson I learned is that if you go any kind of study, you're trying to do anything, proven numerically, like you can make the numbers say anything you want.
100%.
Like, and it sucks.
Because it's funny, like if you hear the debate on, because I listen to both sides, and I think the internet is the best place to find your news, because I think MSNBC, NBC, Fox, they're all in this shit show together trying to outrate each other. But like independent, like internet news sources, they don't really have any. I mean, they have agendas.
They're the backpackers at the news.
Really, that they are. They're just out here trying to what they see their worldview is, right? And then you have left and you're right, and you have your bell curve. But I think if you look at the right view of like something like at the Black Lives Matter and the left's view of something like Black, they spew the same statistics and they just skew them different ways.
It's insane.
It's crazy. And I'm like, how the fuck can you quantify shit like that? You can't quantify shit like that. I was on a panel. I spoke with it was John Carlos, and there was a professor of history. His name is missing me right now. Dr. Horn. And another ex-NFL athlete, and we were talking about things like that, and some kid that looked just like you stood up, and he was like, he sat up and spat out statistics about how many black kids are arrested, how many black people are killed as opposed to white people, yada, yada. And I'm just like, it's amazing how you can skew statistics any way you want to. Like you're 100% white or 100% right. Like white people are killed by police more than black people. But there's different ways that each side skews those statistics, which is why I was like, when you're dealing with analytics, like how accurate can it be? And like this is the scary part. We have to have some kind of point of reference, right, to understand where we are moving in a society, which I would agree with. We have to have some kind of point of reference. But how much do we lay our hat on this is the objective truth when it's not?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the idea, one, like, the pure objective truth, other than Jesus is Lord.
You gonna throw that one in there? Throw that one in there, huh?
Fucking with you.
I like it.
No, actually, I want to ask you kind of about
No, shoot,
that a
man.
little bit. But, actually, you know what?
We'll do a Q&A after this.
All right, cool. So, what am I talking about? No, so, like, I mean, it's so challenging to do that, and so it's like it's really important, like when you're really and this is what we did to try to like get as much of those biases outside of the numbers and stuff, because again, if you're going in like I want to say, crime statistics or something, if I want to find a certain amount like of crime statistics, if I go in with that thing and I go straight to the data, I'm gonna be able to pull out whatever I want.
100%.
So what we did, and like we had like this whole thing, and I remember like being frustrated with it initially, and like you gotta like you come up with hypotheses and stuff, but then like you do like other research and stuff, and so there's so many steps of like thinking and logic, and usually like not game theory, but like logical thinking,
shit like that.
Like I mean, it would take us 2 weeks of coming up and designing the experiment and trying to get out as many biases before we even looked at the numbers,
and then there's shit that we can't account for.
Yeah, and there's always noise.
Yeah. I mean, I think I think it's necessary to a certain extent, but I don't think we hang our hat on objective truth. When you're dealing with social issues, I think when you're talking about science, there is objective truths that you can has predictive powers, and you can hang your hat on. This is the best description of reality known to man at this point in time.
At this point in time,
At
which
this
is
point in time,
important.
yeah. Science is ever changing, but there are some cornerstones that if you overthrow, it will rewrite how we view reality.
Yeah.
But if you no, go ahead.
I was gonna say though, like one thing with social issues too, and I think that's like a really challenging thing is like you can say, oh, I found this objective fact and this objective number or statistic to go with it, but it's like there's so many outside variables that go into that are impossible to quantify, impossible to, and so like saying, bringing out a crime statistic or something like. There's so much stuff that goes into it that explains the numbers behind the noise, and 100%. It's like, and you can't like, so trying to view that from an objective stance is that's setting up to fail.
100%. And to piggyback off that, so like at that conference I was talking at, or at the panel I was talking at, dude stood up and he was like, I understand everything you guys are saying, but if you look at this, if you look at the numbers, white people are killed more by blacks, black people are responsible for more amount of the crime, yada yada yada, and I was like, you like, there's things that you can't quantify, man. And it's hard to say this to people who are like facts are fact, like somebody like Ben Shapiro, who I respect intellectually, but I feel like he's just a dick, right? So like, have you ever heard him speak?
No, yeah, I have.
So I follow him.
agree.
I follow him on Instagram. I stopped following him on Instagram. He takes the most awkward selfies ever. But I followed him on Twitter. I followed him. Like I subscribed to his Daily Wire podcast or whatever that is, because I like hearing opposing sides, and I agree with some of the things he says.
That dude's smart as
he's smart. He's smart as shit. But for people like that, when you're like facts don't care about your opinions. What are you hanging your head on that are facts, right? So if you say the Black Lives Matter movement is full of shit and yada yada yada, like, okay, well, if you have, and this is what I told the guys, like, okay, if you have, because he spat out a fact to me that I think the Department of Justice did this statistic on. Okay, I said, well, that same Department of Justice that you said spit out that fact also said that they found racism in the Ferguson PD. They also found racism in the Baltimore PD, Chicago PD. So these are governmental agencies that found racism within the institution of the police academy. So if you're saying that Black Lives Matter has no foundation for their belief systems and what they're talking about, why did a government agency come out with these statistics saying, no, there is racism? And if there is racism, how many crimes against citizens that the police enact that go unaccounted for? Thousands. You can't account for that. And what who am I going to report a crime from a police officer to a police officer? There's so much distrust in our communities, and I was talking about this. I forget who I was talking about with. This goes back decades. It's the reason why gangs were created. So in Los Angeles, early like Raymond Washington, Tookie Williams, like the leaders of the Crips and the Bloods, right? They originally had gangs in their neighborhoods to protect themselves from the police officers that were roaming their neighborhoods. And if you go back further, I forget what it was. Look this up. It was there was a group of scientists, I think it was in Alabama, that gave black people. They said they were giving vaccines, but they actually gave them syphilis.
Are you fucking serious?
I'm dead serious.
Jesus Christ.
Look this up. Alabama scientists, syphilis. You know how to spell syphilis?
I thought of that
I'm
Lil
saying,
Wayne line when he said C.Y. Phyllis. That's exactly what I thought.
Say rap don't teach nobody nothing.
I still struggle with it.
So the government researcher who led the work in Guatemala, Dr. John Cutler, also was involved in the country's infamous. Okay, it's a Tuskegee experiment.
Okay.
Where from 1932 to 1972, scientists tracked 600 black men in Alabama who had syphilis but didn't know it. So they gave them syphilis and didn't offer them treatment.
So they gave it to them and then didn't do it, or
Yes.
just, or they if they had.
Let me see. I don't want to misrepresent that position. Yeah, go to Wikipedia that we don't pay for. Tuskegee study of untreated syphilis. Okay, so they were saying they were treating them, but they weren't treating them. Right, so the untreated,
Which is, I mean, that's
worse.
just as fucked up.
That's even worse. Just so they can study them. So things like this, right? And so this is definitely anecdotal, 100% anecdotal. But things like this, this is why I feel like social science and hard science are two separate categories. You cannot quantify a lot of this shit. So things like this, if you go back to like the South in Alabama. So I have arguments with friends that I went to college with all the time. Like, man, go to the doctor. And like, nah, you can't trust the doctors. That shit stems from things like this. They used to experiment on black people all the time. So things like this, it accumulates over time. And like, I mean, when was this, in the 30s, 40s, 50s? And I can't drink out of the same water fountain as you. And so after years and years of this abuse, all of a sudden, the Civil Rights Act gets signed in 1963, and it's all good now. The fuck, it's not. And the ideology, it trickles down into our kids, which is why I remember when Adrian Peterson, he got suspended for I don't know how long. I think it was a year for hitting his kid with a switch. 90% of the black community said, "What are you talking about? That is so commonplace. You have to discipline your kids." When everybody else saying, "No, that's child abuse." I grew up in a domestically violent household. Like, I know what child abuse is. I know the difference between discipline and child abuse. Now that I'm a father, I will never lay my hands on a kid. There's different ways to operate. But I understand that mind frame of you have to hit your kids in order for them to stay in line. Yeah. That shit came from slavery. You whip them to stay in line. So like all of this shit stemmed from somewhere. Like, people aren't crazy. No. And when you look at the police brutality that goes on, that went on in our neighborhoods for decades, like I said, with the Tookie Williams and Raymond Washington, that they started these gangs, it came from self-defense. And that's why there's such a distrust in our communities with the police now. And this is why, to bring it full circle, this is why a Ben Shapiro or Jordan Peterson or these super intellectual right-wing people will never understand what it's like. And then it's anecdotal is huge in social science. It's not in hard science, but it is in social science.
And I completely agree with you. And like, I mean, again, you can spew any amount of statistics saying that police brutality is not a thing, or it's gotten fixed, or it's gotten better. But like, having any kind of distrust of the police, like, I'm lucky enough that I say, oh, I can trust a police officer. I can go to, and like, that's someone I can go at a time of need. Right. And not having that, even if it's statistically backed or not, having that distrust, like, that's fucked up. And you can't have a functional society if you can't respect the law like that. And yes, it's entirely anecdotal, so it's easy to dismiss.
And that's the problem. It's like, and that's the problem. It's like when you deal with the women, the gender pay gap, or the sexual harassment issues. It's easy for people to say, look at the statistics. It's not there. And rather than listen to somebody, even if you're right, say it's not the case. Even if it's right, what's the harm in listening to people? Like, listen to these people, man. Yeah. Like they're not on like, the majority of people are just working check to check, trying to survive, man. And they're sitting here saying, look, I see this hurdle. And if at best, you can educate them and say, listen, this might seem like a hurdle, but it's not. And I'm not saying those issues are that, but I'm saying if that's what you feel, you can definitely take that approach rather than saying facts don't care about you. Like, fuck out of here, bro. Like, that's so insensitive and so ungodlike, which you claim to be anyway. But I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. I fuck with Ben Shapiro for the most part, man. But man, listen, man. I appreciate you coming on, but I want to give you an opportunity to ask any question, because it was a random ass Twitter. Hey man, have a fan on. So like, any question you have, any whatever you want to. I'm an open book, bro.
Hell yeah. So I got a couple. One I want to talk to you about, because I am curious about your atheism and your faith. And personally, I like to say I'm agnostic right now. I'm not fully committed to atheism. And well, I mean, just because it's I can't prove that it's right or wrong. Right. Either way. But I'm curious, because I've struggled with this internally, and I'm interested to see what you say. Like I went to Christian high schools growing up, Christian schools growing up. No, actually, no. It's funny because my brother, when he went to a different one. He went to a Catholic one, and he like from it had a really like negative thing. He was like, he felt it was crammed down his throat, all this stuff. But my school, it was like, yeah, I mean, we're Christian, but they really had like another thing, and that's like when I became atheist. Is they had a world religions class that you could take your junior year, and so like I took it. You got to study Hinduism, you got to study Islam, and you got to study Judaism, and like realizing like, all right, all these guys completely believe all of their own stories and think everybody else is wrong.
100%.
So clearly everybody's fucking wrong.
Or everyone's right.
Or everyone's right, because I think we're all right in a lot of respects, because they all and I think this is interesting that like all these society, like all these cultures.
Are you had a drink, by the way?
Oh yeah.
You want some more drink?
Why not?
Let's do lemonade and
let's do it.
Unnamed liquid.
No sponsors.
Until they pay up. Then I have a bottle here. Wait, well, go ahead, fam.
Yeah. but the idea, like, but everybody, like, all these cultures, completely isolated from each other.
No Jesus juice for me.
You know what I'm saying? All right, man. More
thanks,
for my
boss.
guy.
You know, but it was cool because all these cultures, you know, completely isolated from each other, all came up with like the same set of ground rules, like respect your family, respect your neighbor, like, you know, don't kill, be objectively a good person. So I think that's interesting. But like, if you really are a pure atheist and you really believe that we're just a clump,
Pure atheist.
I mean, you really believe that we are just a clump of cells and random evolution found our ways to consciousness.
Okay, before, I'm gonna correct you on one thing.
Please,
Let me
please.
finish. Evolution is not random. It's non-random. It's very specific. But go ahead.
Okay, all right. So fine. Specific evolution and the and natural selection brought us to this place of consciousness. And if we're really this ball of cells, what's the point of getting up and being a good person? Why aren't
Being
we
a good person?
Yeah. Why aren't we sitting in Bermuda sipping cocktails, fucking everything?
We are.
I guess that's the goal, right?
So that's basically the question of morality.
Yeah.
And you get it a lot when you proclaim yourself as an atheist. And to be 100% specific, atheism is a lack of belief in knowledge. I mean, a lack of belief in. They're gonna love that one.
Yeah.
A lack of belief in a God. The Jesus juice is working on me. It's a lack of a belief in a God. It's not an assertion that a God does not exist. Right, so it's saying there's a claim out there that says there is a divine being. I'm saying I don't believe that. That's all that is. So when the question of morality comes up, I think what gets lost from a believer standpoint is that there is this objective truth out there that is right, and nobody can ever tell me what it is. And they say, thou shalt not kill, yada, yada. I'm like, okay, well, if a man is entering your home and he's about to kill your wife and you have one shot, are you going to kill him? Of course you're going to kill him. But God says do not kill, right? So where does that objectivity lie? Like, who draws the line of where that objectivity is? And what I think is there is no objective morality. There's no such thing. What it is cultural. Right. So in some cultures, like the death penalty, it used to be super acceptable here.
Yeah.
Right. It was in all 50 states, to my knowledge. It was in all 50 states, and now I think it's in only a select amount of states.
Yeah.
I think it still is in Texas. I could be wrong about that, but so I think morality is strictly cultural, and so the point of waking up and being a good person to me is just this: the golden rule. And it was said by Confucius before it was said by Jesus, is that you treat people how you want to be treated for the most part, right? So if I don't like pain being inflicted on me, I'm not going to inflict that pain on you. If I like pain being inflicted on you, but you don't like pain being inflicted on you, if I like it on me and you do like it, you don't like it on you, I don't have that right in order to put you through a situation that you're not comfortable with.
Yeah.
I don't have that right.
Because there's like a mutual agreement here. Like, you know, I don't want to be fucked with, you don't want to be fucked with, so let's not fuck with each other.
Right. I mean, and the counter argument is like, what if I do want to be fucked with? Then does that extend? No. So my rights end at the extension of my radius. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to do anything to you that inhibits your freedoms. So that's my moral landscape. And granted, like I say, I can sit on a pedestal. Like we've all done shit we regret, 100%, right? So I'm not perfect, but that's where I base my morality on. I try not to hurt people because I don't like to be hurt. That's basically it.
Yeah, of course, but now, and I agreed in that is there's a good answer for sure of how to like handle that in relationships. What about internal morality? Like,
As far as what?
Self betterment. You know, like what's like of making yourself a better person. And like, I mean, again, like if the idea of we're just a clump of cells and pleasure feels good and you know, non-pleasurable things don't feel good.
Right.
What's the point of that? I mean,
when you say what's the point, like you're framing it in a sense like there's this overseer. You're almost framing it in a sense. I don't look at it like that. So when you say what's the point, it's like,
what is the point to you?
It's nonsensical. It's a nonsensical question, not in any disrespectful kind of way. But I'm saying it's nonsensical, and it doesn't make any sense when you say, "What's the point of getting up in the morning?" Like,
what is the point?
There is no point.
To you.
But yeah, that's my point.
So your point is there is no point, and I would agree with you on that. But people who view atheists a certain way say, "Oh well, what's the point of living?" Like if there's no grand reward or if there's no eternal purpose, why live your life? Because, like you said, pleasurable things feel good, and the things that I enjoy are this life. So I understand that this life is finite. I was born in 1986, and I'm gonna die here soon, right? Relatively to how old this Earth and how old this universe is.
Relatively, that is quite soon. Yeah.
I'm gonna die really soon. And I have no knowledge and no recollection of anything before 1986. Really 1989, because I don't remember anything before I was 3.
No firsthand knowledge.
I mean, that's all I have is firsthand knowledge.
Huh?
Here he goes. That's all I have is firsthand
All we've
knowledge.
been looking up was secondhand knowledge.
I'm talking about
But you
consciously.
can't learn it until you learn it firsthand, though, right?
I'm talking about consciously or subconsciously. Yeah, I can only learn it in the here and now, and then recall it in my memory. That's all I have. I don't have any recollection from anything before 1986, right? I have nothing to suggest that I'll remember anything after the date that I die. So my time on this earth is finite. So I relish it. I enjoy it. I think it's precious.
So that's why you wake up in the morning.
That's why I wake up in the morning.
So there is a point.
To me. So he was asking relatively, of course, but he was asking in the frame of in an atheistic, materialistic worldview. What's the point if we're just matter?
But
Am I right? I don't
would
wanna
be saying
yeah,
that
no,
he's
no, no.
only looking at you as that.
No. I mean, because there's certain frameworks and contexts that these kind of questions come from, and if I'm misrepresenting you,
No, you're getting it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm asking the basic atheist question.
right. So the point is for me to, like, if I was to say what's our purpose on this earth, our purpose is we are a part of this universe that has become self-aware, which is we're made up of the same atoms that the sun, that the moon, everything on this earth, we're all made up of the exact same material. So we are a part of the universe that is self-aware. And because of that, we have, I feel like, an obligation, or even just a basic natural instinct of being inquisitive to figure out how we got here and why we're here, right? Why is more of a philosophical question, but that it haunts us. And so I feel like that the God proposition is that it fills that void of why. How is, I feel like, science. Science says how. And who knows, in 30,000 years from now, when we are totally combined with computer chips, we may figure out if there is or is not a supernatural being, and we might figure out exactly how and why we're here. Who knows? But for now, that hunger for knowledge is driving us as a society collectively. What is that term? It's a term where, like, so like, say one ant by itself is stupid. It's just a dumb ant, right? But collectively, as a unit, they do brilliant things. And so I think
That's where we are.
yeah, fuck. It starts with an E.
So we got to get together real quick.
And just type in term for collective intellect. What's up with the face, man? You don't think that's gonna do it?
No,
take
I
us a
don't
couple
think
different
anyone has
directions.
ever Googled that.
Sam Harris had a great quote,
He's
though.
fucking brilliant.
Oh yeah. But he was saying that, like, intelligence is ultimately humans' only asset.
Only? I don't believe that at all.
Well, I mean, he
Say
said,
it
like,
again?
ultimately, like, in compared to
I would
the, like,
argue
in
the
compared
shit
to-
out of Sam Harris.
Say it
for that.
again.
Please.
Say it again.
Well, the idea that like ultimately, like, in the, like, when compared to the span of time, like, intelligence is like human beings greatest, like, that's our greatest asset, and ultimately, like, our only asset.
Emergence.
Emergence.
Type in emergence definition, but go ahead.
All right. But So
I would disagree, and this
Okay.
is why I would disagree.
Oh, please.
Art.
But could you argue that that's in some capacity? Well, okay,
Because we don't really know what intelligence
okay,
is. When he says
that's true,
intelligence,
that's
what does he
true.
mean?
Yeah, because I would agree that art, like, because you could argue that using whatever definition of intelligence, that kind of creative expression could be encompassed by intelligence.
Right.
So I would say so. I guess in that definition of intelligence, I think art would definitely count as
Yeah,
that.
so it depends on what he's talking about in the
Yeah.
framework of what intelligence
Yeah.
is.
So I guess intellect, is that a better? Do you think that's a more
It's
fair
hard
word?
because we don't really. What is intellect?
No, I guess that's true.
What is anything?
That's what I'm saying. So like when you
Everything is everything.
everything is everything. Lauren Hill. So okay, so what was I saying? Emergence in philosophy, systems theory, science, and art. Emergence is a phenomenon whereby larger entities arise through interactions among smaller or simpler entities, such that the larger entities exhibit. Man, go ahead, click that. So I'm just not with the ellipses. I saw it. So okay, run it back one more time for the myself. In philosophy, systems theory, science, and art, emergence is a phenomenon whereby larger entities arise through interactions among smaller or simpler entities, such that the larger entities exhibit properties that the smaller/simpler entities do not exhibit. So, I feel like that's what we do as human race. That's what ants do. Individually, we're kind of just bumping around doing our own thing, but collectively, we have a goal, and it's emergence. And I think we are a property of this universe, and I think we're not. Because of this divine, that's what I think religion and what a quote unquote God does. I think it detaches us from the oneness of what this universe is. We try to detach ourselves from it so much. If you break down what is anything in this world, it is a wave. Tell me what in this world is not a wave.
Explain.
Name something.
A beach.
I mean, what do you mean? I mean,
Name anything on this earth, in this universe.
That's not a like.
no. Fuck
Okay.
that's not a wave. Name something.
This cup.
That's a wave. Because if you break it down to its molecules, it's a wave. Particles.
Oh,
have,
you mean from like a
Yeah,
scientific
physics
level? Oh yeah,
standpoint.
yes.
Everything is a
Yeah.
wave. But when you bring it to the macro, and we're living, walking people,
Yeah.
we're still a wave. If you look at bell curves, if you look at in every class, there's a bell curve, is there not?
There is.
What is a bell curve?
It's a nice little
It's a
distribution
fucking wave.
Yeah.
It's a wave. Everything in this universe is a wave. If you look at light, if you look at matter, if you look at energy, if you look at anything, it's all waves. And we try to detach ourselves from this universe all the time, but everything works in exactly the same way. The bell curve is the same way. You have super smart geniuses, you have super fucking dumbasses, and you have a lot of people in the middle, right? It's the same. What is not in that duality of a particle and a wave? What is not a wave?
No.
In the world that we live in.
Well, let me ask you this. So going back to the idea of emergence and the idea of oneness, because that was something that also I was thinking, like, because I think there's great value in religion, like for society.
do?
Well, stay with me. Of course, it has
Falling
caused
off the horse, man.
objectively, it has brought more pain and suffering than any other single entity in the world. But at the same time, it's also brought a lot of prosperity. And the whole idea of religion is it provides oneness. And I remember that was something that I thought, well, think about it.
How does religion provide oneness?
Well, if you think about everybody in your congregation, we're all one together. We're all one.
Yeah,
we're
but
one
then there's
group of
another
people.
congregation down the street that doesn't agree.
Well, I never said that it was perfect. It's very flawed.
But you said
and,
lazy.
and that's something that every book, every holy book promotes some kind of us versus them. There's the evil Philistines or whatever, some evil entity that must be killed, and But I think that was like why religion is very successful and very popular and necessary for human life to prosper. And
Necessary?
It was, and I think that we have reached a level of science where it no longer is. But I am concerned. I think if the entire world turned atheist tomorrow, do you think we would be able to go on and prosper the exact way we are?
Not only will we be able to prosper, we would fucking flourish.
You don't think there'd be any negative externalities?
So what is holding us back as a people?
I
You think it's science?
Oh, fuck no.
No,
science has brought more good than anything.
What is the biggest war in the longest tenor in war?
Oh, it's religion. It always is. And, hey, no, we're 100% on the same page here. Religion is fucking bad. But
if everybody woke up tomorrow and said, you know what, there's no God, and they believed it in their heart of hearts,
yeah,
their narrative would change.
But you don't think there'd be like massive spells of hedonism and people running rapid
already.
But even more.
It's definitely a question that people have. Like, people are gonna wake up and rape whatever they want to rape, and really question their purpose on earth. And I think a lot of people would really struggle with that. If God is the reason why you're not running around and rape people, well, by all means, my dog, pray. By all means. But
that's a good point.
I think people that want to rape people, they rape people. I think people that want to murder people, they murder people. And there's no imaginary or whatever in their head, if it's a real being, there's no being that's going to stop you. Because you realize that there's no physical consequences other than the worldly consequences, right? Because you get away with stealing when you're a kid. You're like, holy shit, there's really no, maybe karma, but like, I'm not really afraid. My life is already shitty, right? So people that want to do bad things are already doing bad things. If science came out and proved objectively tomorrow that there is no God, that does not make me want to go kill somebody. That does not make me want to go rape somebody. It doesn't. It might.
All right, so let's stay away from the extreme violence aspect because I would agree with you. If someone wants to murder someone, someone wants to rape someone, they're going to do it. Yeah. They're going to do it. But I do think that there are a lot of people who need religion because they're struggling points of their life. They need that level of community. They need that level of interaction. And I think if you completely removed all of that,
right,
I think a lot of people would struggle with that lack of structure.
That's one way of thinking about it. But if you removed all religion, that would then take a category away from subsets of human beings that are divided. So you have 33%.
That's awesome. I love that.
I got a white man pound right there. So you have 33% of the world who's Christian, 30 or 20 some odd percent who's Muslim, 20% of those Catholic, and then you got Jewish and whatever the statistics are. There is a huge division on this earth, and the majority of it, I would say, doesn't end in conflict. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
But it is a huge focal point of differentiation between people. And if we are to really bridge the gap into the oneness that I think that we actually are, that's a huge vice in that's one of our Achilles heels.
I completely agree with you there. And I really think, and also I think we take like ultimately the United States really compared to a lot of the rest of the world is a very secular country, and I think we take that for granted. And like we don't, I mean, if we're in fucking Saudi Arabia, like there's no
podcast.
No,
like this.
Exactly.
But it kills me because like I enjoy diversity of thought. Like I follow Ben Shapiro on Twitter, right?
And you guys disagree on a lot of shit.
We disagree on a lot of shit, but I respect I respect how he arrives to the conclusions that he has. I don't agree with your conclusions. Let's make no bones about it. But I respect how you do that, right? I don't respect how you talk to people sometimes. Whatever. Like that's all hearsay. But like you're a nonviolent person, you feel how you feel. I'm a nonviolent person, I feel how I feel. There's no reason why we can't at least enjoy each other's point of views.
Exactly.
There's no reason.
Yeah.
But like you have people in America who feel like if you don't enjoy their point of view, you're actually being disrespectful of America, which is in itself the biggest fucking contradiction on the fucking planet.
I agree with you there. Yeah,
it's amazing.
It's a bummer. So I'm curious. So I know you were raised as Muslim, and your brother's still practicing, right?
Is anybody? I think he would say I'm a Muslim, but if you ask me, does he practice? I would say no. But I think that's the majority of Christians I know. If you ask me, are they Christian? I'm like, yeah, they identify as Christian, but are they practicing Christians? I would say no. I think we like to identify with religion because it makes us feel good. But go ahead.
You practicing atheism?
Atheism is not there's no tenets, or else I would. If we had there's no tenets.
Well, that's why I had this.
Christianity is not a religion, it's a relationship, and I call that bullshit. Type in definition of religion. I don't hate people. I'm saying I hate when people say that though.
That being said,
'Cause
though,
I think it's bullshit.
I think the relationship aspect is a little bit more valuable because
How? Because you're talking to yourself.
Well, a little bit. So
You don't?
I put it about this way.
Huh?
So like
You
my
don't talk to
mom, like
yourself?
my
Yeah, but I don't claim it's anybody else in the conversation.
well, so I mean, like so
It's you and you.
I do. I think it's very healthy to have a self dialogue or a monologue, but I think to claim that there's somebody else involved.
What's
is,
your favorite Bible verse?
John
Oh.
10:3, John 10:34. But hold on, religion. This is the definition. Religion: belief in and worship of a superhuman controlling power, especially a personal god or gods. So, when you say it's not a religion, it's a relationship. Well, no, your definition. Like, let's just get clear on our definitions because
that's true.
I
Yeah,
don't want
that's
to argue
what it
about
is.
words. Words are stupid. They just convey meaning. They can as best we can describe what we are thinking. That's what words are for, and they don't do us justice of how we're thinking. So when you say it's not a religion, it's a relationship, okay, I'm with you, but if we look at the definition of religion, that's inaccurate. Let's just get to what you're talking about. You're saying you don't really believe in the tenets of Christianity, but you just have a relationship with God. Like, what? Just tell me what you mean, because I feel like it's just fluff, and I feel like people like to say it because it makes them feel a little more than conservative Christians or like what do they call them? Fundamentalist Christians. Because if you're a fundamentalist Christian, you have some silly ass beliefs.
fuck yeah.
You believe snakes talk, and you believe the Earth is 6,000 years old, or can talk. What was you about to say though?
Oh, shit, what was I gonna say? Oh well, no. So actually, I was gonna say so the relationship thing, because I do think that's and so like I remember like my mom, like she was, because like, you know, I'm not religious but I'm spiritual, you know, a lot of people say stuff
Yeah.
like that, and but like,
Which
you know,
is nonsensical as well.
a little bit, yeah. But I remember though, like, you know, we wouldn't pray. I wasn't raised in a religious household at all. But like, I mean, there'd be sometimes, you know, we're sitting down for dinner and stuff, and my mom would be like, you know, no, I just want to say thanks, and just pray to something, and it was the idea of her just saying thankful. She's thankful for all the blessings that
Right.
all the luck she's had in her life. I don't like use the term blessing.
man.
Well, no, I mean, 'cause
In
it's
her
not
eyes, it's a blessing.
If we're atheists, it's no blessing, right?
I don't think so, but
Yeah.
from her worldview, yes, it's a blessing.
Exactly, and but the idea that you're thankful, and you know, and if you want, and so my thought is like prayer essentially is optimism. And so like the idea is like you're praying, like if you're sitting there, you're praying, like, you know, like, oh, I want, like I hope, you know, like, you know, grandma's sick or something. You're like, I pray for her, like I'm being optimistic, I'm sending good energies, I'm sending good vibes, like, and essentially that's optimism, you know, right? You're saying like and you're telling yourself, be positive, be optimistic, and some people do that by, quote, putting their faith in the higher power,
Right.
And they do that, and I think that, like, that's ultimately what you're doing when you're praying, is that you try to say, I'm taking it out of my hands, I'm trying to be optimistic, good thing's gonna happen. That's the mindset I have.
Okay, so if we're talking about if we're talking about prayer, I don't have a problem. First of all, I don't have a problem with people, any kind of religion you have anyway. As long as you're not sticking your nose in other people's freedoms, don't bother me. Do you think? But if we're talking about just personally, if we're talking about prayer, I think it's probably the biggest waste of time that there is. Now, if you're praying, I don't know the studies, and I could be wrong about this. So I will subtract. I will take back that statement. I couldn't think of the word. I will take back that statement if the studies show that prayer and meditation are somewhat synonymous. Then I would definitely take the statement back. But from that aspect, because I feel like meditation is extremely helpful, and this is objective, right? So like there's study after study that's saying meditation and that clairvoyance, is that the right word? Just the clarity of thought is good for our biofunctions. It's good for our mental process. Everything about it is just very beneficial. So if prayer does the same thing to the brain as meditation, I would say pray away, 100%.
It does.
All right. Well, we'll wait. I mean, I'm pretty sure somebody will tweet me a link after this episode. But the majority of time when people talk about prayer that I've run across, and yeah, it's definitely anecdotal, but the majority of the time that I run across people talking about prayer, it's talking about how a deity or something of the sort is going to influence your daily life in some type of way. And I think it's asinine, I think it's disrespectful, and I think it's arrogant to think that's going to be the case.
I completely agree with you about that, the arrogance of it. Because, like, for example, like if you're going through surgery and, you know, like, oh, I'm going to pray, like, oh, I'm praying God's going to help it. Like, that's so disrespectful to doctors. Those are the guys doing the knife, right?
And I wouldn't even say, I want to see the doctors. This is what I say is disrespectful. If like your mother, right? Your mother says, I want to give thanks for this food. And you're praying to God, say, man, thank you for giving me this food. Why the, I'm not talking to your mom, I'm just talking about in general.
Yeah.
Why the fuck do you feel like God chose you to eat that night and not the person in India that you saw scraping crumbs off the floor? Like, why do you think he chose you? Like, what makes you so fucking confident that he chose you to eat? It's fucking arrogant. And
That's why you're thankful. Because he did choose.
he didn't. That's the whole point, though. My point is, there was no fucking divine
It
puppet
could have been
master.
worse, is what you're saying.
Yeah, well, say that then. Don't say he chose me. No, fuck out of here. Like, there's no fucking, you get to eat tonight. Because I was one of those kids that, like, when I grew up, there were nights I didn't eat, right? I had my mom on this podcast, and we went through that. It was a very tough time in our lives. And there were nights I didn't eat, dog. That shit was hard, right? So, but I never felt...
You don't think you're better for it now, though? Because you tell that story a lot, and I think it motivates.
100%. It's the reason
So
why...
it was supposed to be how it is. So it is what it is. Everything is everything.
But how many people were
That's a-
motivated
that's
from
a-
that, and
that's
how
a-
many people were
that's
like
irrelevant.
foreverly like?
Why do you care
like,
about anyone
hardened
else
by that?
but yourself?
Well, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. I'm
Why
a
do you
humanist. I
care
care
about-
about other people. And so do you.
I know. I'm asking, why do you care about
Because
anyone else by
I
yourself?
care about other
but yourself?
people. Because I too don't like to struggle, right? So I don't like. I was a multi-million-dollar athlete in the NFL. Like, you don't see me in no flashy cars with all this flashy shit on. Like, I'm a very modest human being because I understand it can be taken away, and it's really just all fluff anyway. It's all inflation. Like, we talked about economics. It's so flimsy. It doesn't really mean anything. So whatever it is my market value was, I want to bring happiness to another human being.
Why?
Why? Damn. Why do I want to bring happiness to another human being outside of myself?
Can I throw a second?
That's what I meant when I asked, why do you care about anything other than yourself?
I know you're not an asshole. I understand where you're coming from. Why do I want?
Can I?
I don't have that. Has that question ever been asked to me before? I'm fucked up right now. So hold on. No, okay, I'm gonna answer it like this. After hold your question.
Okay,
I got you.
Sure.
I think that there are things in this universe that are unexplainable. And I think that we have the foundation and the power to answer these questions. And the more questions you answer, the more questions you unveil. But the more people able to collectively find these answers, the better off humanity will be. By and large, well, the more people that are happy, the better environment it is for myself and my children, right? So in the microcosm, I feel like there's things in the universe that we can figure out and that can be beneficial to our race, right? In the micro, happiness to me is the foundation of human society. Should be anyway. I love being happy and I love seeing other people happy. I guess it's this small bit of altruism in me.
I don't know what that means.
Dude,
You have the World Wide Web at your fingertips, man. It's a beautiful
All
world.
knowledge in the
I thought
world.
you was going to tell me, man.
Altruism.
I don't even know how to spell that.
altruism.
I got a little bit of a cynical take, and I know you're a fellow cynic too.
So,
Slightly.
I'm pessimistic.
Pessimistic.
Okay,
all right, I'll
right,
give you
right.
that.
So hold on, I was just reading
please,
altruism because I want people to.
Yeah.
Altruism, the belief in or practice of disinterested and selfless concern for the well-being of others. Bam. Throw that in your. I know you're altruistic, no doubt. All right, go ahead. Give me throw your cynic curveball. at me.
So well, I mean, I guess the idea is that like we get, like again, since we're clump of cells, like our synapses go off.
There's this one. Hold on. There's this one guy on Twitter that fucks with me all the time. He's a staunch Christian, you can tell, and he what do they call him? What do they call him? They call him. I am blanking on the term, but they use that term all the time. We're just a clump of cells. We're just matter in motion is what they always say. Oh, what is that term? Fuck it, go ahead. It'll pop up in the middle of your sentence.
But the idea though that like, you know, we at our neurons, we get pleasure, like selfish pleasure from being selfless. Mm-hmm. And do you think that's a part of it? Because
and so there's that age-old debate. Is there such thing as altruism, right? So is altruism, because like I get a satisfaction out of doing good for others. So is that necessarily altruistic? Because I feel good when I do something good for somebody else.
Why do you?
Because like it's
why do you feel good?
I don't know. I don't know.
See,
I don't know where that comes from. I don't know why I feel good when I don't. I mean, how can you? You'd have to explain it on a molecular level. Like, why does serotonin drip when I give a homeless man $1 on the corner? Like, why does that make me feel good? I have no idea.
So for you to understand that you want it to be broken down at a molecular level, and then once it's real to you in your head, then
I mean, I'll still be like that. But once it's real to me, once it's real to me in my head, I feel like it's easier to it's easier for me to spread that information.
Right.
And so it would be easier for me. But not only, you know what it is? That's what it is. I think if it was broken down on that level, then I would have a objective reason as to why I'm altruistic. It's not just an opinion. Like, I think you should just be good to people because it's the right thing to do. And be like, well, it's the right thing. You can argue philosophically any point you want to, honestly. But if it's broken down on that level, you can't argue with me anymore. You can't argue with me that the sun has a spectrum. I'll show you you're wrong, or show that it doesn't have a spectrum. I'll show you you're wrong. You know what I'm saying? I'll show you the colors that light is. Light isn't like whatever.
You can't show me that people don't want to be accepted. You can't show me that people don't want to be understood.
How? How?
You can't.
That's what I'm saying. Objectively.
But everyone does. That's why I'm altruistic, because I know everyone wants to be accepted. I know
everyone does.
Everyone doesn't want to be accepted and understood. Who doesn't want to be accepted?
I think it's a good hypothesis.
Who doesn't want to be accepted? I want to know.
Can we agree the vast majority of people do?
I would
at
agree with
least,
that.
right?
I know who doesn't.
Yeah. But
that would be a philosophical argument. Yeah. I would agree with you. Majority of people do want to be accepted.
So that's what I do. I try to accept you.
I would agree. Yeah, you're great at that, man.
Got to give the people what they want, man.
You got to give the people what they want. People champ.
There you go, Bernie Sanders.
What was the cynic thing that you were saying?
Oh, the cynical idea is that like you know, when you feel good giving money to homeless guys because like you're like, yeah, I'm a good guy. Like you do it for like you do selfless acts for selfish reasons because you internally feel better.
There's a lot of people that do that shit, and I think it's the corniest shit ever. So like this is why like if you type in like Arian Foster charity on Google, you're not gonna see a lot of shit. A lot of shit I do. Sometimes you have to have the camera there because it helps bring awareness to the cause, or you get a lot of people to donate, whatever. But the 90% of the shit I do, you'll never hear about because I don't do it for recognition. I do it because I actually want to help people. And like, I feel like there is a whole lot of people that do things just in front of the camera.
Oh, looks good to have your fucking name on the side of the building.
Oh, fucking, I hate it though. It's the most disingenuous piece of shit thing to do ever.
Because you see a lot of that in the league.
Man, what? You get so much notoriety for being known as like the Walter Payton Man of the Year. Like, get the fuck. Like, if you look at like, I'm not knocking people for doing good deeds.
Yeah.
But if you look at, like, I always look like why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? Why the fuck is there a camera there? Why are you documenting this? In some instances, like, and this is my core with the Bible, right? So like, there's a lot of contradictions in there. I think there's one verse that says, and I'm gonna butcher the shit out of this, but there's one verse that says, never let one hand know what the other hand is doing, and the other one that says the opposite, right? And I have it written down somewhere, but it sounds terrible. But Bible flippers know what I'm talking about. But I think if you're doing it in good nature, I don't think you need a camera there. And I've had cameras there in my, so I understand the necessity for it sometimes. Like I had cameras at events where I'm like, I wish that shit wasn't here. Like, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to promote this. I just want to help people.
Yeah.
But people are disingenuous, and when it gets to the he's such a charitable guy, that's when I think it starts getting you're taking advantage of people. That's when I feel like it's when you're like, he's such a charitable guy. Because like, why do we know you're such a charitable guy? It's because everything that you do that's charitable is recorded.
But at the same time, if you're donating, say, $20 million to some incredible cause, right? But you put your name on the side of it. Like, I mean, are you a douchebag, and that takes away all your credibility of doing all that prosperity and all that
Depends
good?
on why? You know, a lot of people do a lot of charitable acts because it's a tax write-off.
That's a really good point, though. It's true.
I know so many rich people that just give money to charity, not because they give a fuck about the cause, because it's a tax write-off. No. They're getting some of that money back, and you have to spend it. You have to. So it's like, I think you have to judge each case independently. I'm not saying all people who do charity are assholes, or all people that have cameras at their charities are assholes. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying I am definitely skeptical about charities with cameras there, 100%. But when it's something like I said, if you was doing something overseas and you was helping people in India, you was helping people in Africa, and you was like doing a water well, I think a camera needs to be there. Because then you're saying, especially I think if you're a minority, right? Not you, a minority in India. I'm talking about me. Yeah. Say I'm a black man and I go to Africa and I build water wells, right? In villages that had to walk 5 miles for water. Bring a camera with you, because what you're doing then is you're telling other black people who are affluent in your country, saying, look at what we can do and look at the influence that we can have, right? Whereas if you're a white guy in the suburbs and you give charity to some school in the ghetto, most likely you're either doing it for, and I hate typecasting people, but a lot of the times I see people do charities, they never come back. And that's where you see where the genuineness of it is. Like, how invested are you? Do you really care? Or are you just doing it for, hey,
you'll give the money, you'll take the publicity.
That's what I'm saying.
And
then you're known as,
away.
And that's what's crazy.
And then you got the name on the side of the building.
And what's fucked up about today's society, especially in like, if you look at like NFL, NBA, that was a big qualm I had with the NFL, is there's such a reactive force rather than a proactive force. When that whole Ray Rice, I'm talking like my son. When that whole Ray Rice thing went down, right? For people that don't know, Ray Rice, he hit his wife in an elevator and it was blasted all over. Well, initially when it went down, they figured out what happened. Yeah, they got the tape. He was suspended for 2 games.
Oh, yeah.
Then the tape leaked. When the tape leaked, he got blackballed from the league. Why did he get blackballed from the league? It's because they're fucking reactive, right? What the fuck did you think domestic violence looked like? When people heard what happened, they was like, oh man, they have issues in their relationship. I hope they get it together. But when you saw it, you're like, oh, that's terrible. Why would he do, like, what the fuck did you think domestic violence looked like? That's exactly what it looked like.
And then look at Greg Hardy. Greg Hardy had the same thing. And I mean, you look at the evidence. It sounded at least like Greg Hardy did a hell of a lot worse.
Yeah, there's no
there's no video. There's no video. And what, he gets 6 games?
So that's what I'm saying. There's no consistency. And what it is they just want to protect the brand of the Shield. And all they want to do is protect their name. And it's pure bullshit. I wrote a letter, and I told him I would never say it publicly, but we here. I wrote a letter to Roger Goodell, and he never responded back to me. They're clowns, man. I wrote a letter to Roger Goodell. He never responded back to me. And in that letter, I grew up in a domestically violent household. So this issue was so personal to me, right? And I said, you have a huge opportunity here. A huge opportunity. And Anheuser-Busch was threatening to drop the NFL as a sponsor because of because they didn't want to
seem affiliated with domestic violence.
Right? And I said, you are the biggest fucking hypocrites in the world, because you sell poison. The majority of, and I know causation doesn't necessarily equal correlation, but if you look at domestic violence cases and you look at alcohol involved, there's a huge correlation in there. But I wrote him a letter and I said, you have a huge opportunity to educate your fan base on domestic violence and how to treat people. You have programs set in place to help drug addicts, right? There's the 2-step program. If you get caught with weed or smoking weed, doing cocaine, doing heroin, alcohol, all these things, you have programs set up to help your players because they're abusing drugs. But you outcast people who abuse people, right? It's the same disease. you are an abuser. You abuse people, and it's a problem. Now, granted, I don't 100%. I never condone hitting a woman, and I never condone a woman hitting a man. But no question about it. But it is a thing because I know people who have gone through it and have come out on the other side, beautiful human beings, but they needed help because there's things in their past that they needed to address. And there was a huge point, and I wrote him this before the shit hit the fan, and this fucker never got back to me. But it's unless it affects their bottom line, they don't give a shit, and that's why I don't respect the NFL. But I wrote him this letter, and he had a huge opportunity because there's like I think there's 50% of relationships in America deal with domestic violence. So it's not an NFL problem. It's a human being problem.
It's a rampant problem.
100%. And so people that are watching Ray Rice, there's women on that side saying, punish him. And there's men on that side saying, I've dealt with that same thing. Like, so there's problems there. So you have a huge opportunity to address this situation and say, if you really gave a fuck about a Ray Rice, you would say, here's some counseling. We're going to pay for counseling for you. We're going to pay for counseling for your family. And we're going to try to help you guys mend the situation. Then you can be a beacon of light for people who have been through the situation and help them through that. Say, you know what? Here's a man who struggled with this and we're helping him out. But because it's so taboo in this country to hit another woman or a man hit a woman, which I agree, it should be. But it's a reactive society. Like, you don't want to be proactive. Be proactive and say, you know what? There are people. Then guess what? You set up a program. How many people voluntarily or a wife would be like, join that program? We're dealing with this as well.
I've never heard the comparison between domestic abuse and drug abuse. But now that you say it, it's so similar. And the idea is that we have such systematic ways and systematic rehabilitation programs and all these things that now, luckily, and with the turn of the century, we have become much less taboo.
100%.
And the idea is, 30 years ago, it was like, oh, you're addicted to drugs, you're a bad person.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's a big problem. And
science.
Man, damn, that is a really interesting thought.
It's 100%. And that's why I get so disheartened with what's going on with the NFL, period. And I think even recently they had that. I think the NFL players and the league are trying to put together some funds to work on some social issues.
I wanted to ask you about that. Yeah,
right. So they're putting together some funds to work on some social issues, and the NFL owners suggested, and I could be paraphrasing. Please, somebody out there correct me if I'm wrong. But the NFL owners suggested that they take a pool from the money. So some of the money from Breast Cancer Awareness Week and some of the money from Salute to Service Week, that they take that and then they they take some of that and they put in some of the funds of social justice. And a lot of the guys pulled out and said, get the fuck out of here. So you want me to take from causes that are worthy instead of just forking over money that you have and actually aiding shit that your players care about. But this is why owners don't give a fuck. All they care about is their bottom line. So when it's sexy, that's why Jerry Jones took a knee and then stood up for the national anthem.
Sitting there, the fucking
that's the corniest shit ever, man. That's the corniest shit ever. Like, you just doing it, but it's so reactionary. It's NFL. It's so reactionary. You just do things because it's a hot topic. Let me get involved. You don't care, and that's why I said like that's where that the root of that comes from of having cameras there. It's usually disingenuous because you don't really give a fuck. You don't care about that shit. So why you acting like you care? You're just doing it for notoriety, or you doing it because somebody told you should give back, or you're doing it for a tax write-off, and it's bullshit.
No. Think about that, like, and talk about a way of short-sighted thinking of the idea that they're pulling it from breast cancer, they're pulling it from other funds. Like, I mean, ultimately, these owners, like, how they get their money, it's not the cash flow from a year-to-year basis. It's growing the value of their franchise. 100%. And if they fork over, a couple $1 million each or something, they could raise massive amounts of money. And they're like, hey, we'll take $5 million each off the bottom line or whatever for this 1 year, and us paying $150 million, or I think it's under $100 million now. But I mean, if they forked over a massive amount of money, saying, hey, this is from our personal paycheck and our personal money and put into this social justice cause, that buys them so much more money and goodwill. That's a poor financial decision.
But then it's that cognitive dissonance. They don't believe in the cause. They believe in breast cancer. The breast cancer happens. They don't believe that there's any. You have these same owners that funded Trump's campaign, and it's the same. This is the same guy. This is the same guy.
Taxes.
Allegedly, we don't know that shit. But I'm saying, but here's a guy saying these sons of bitches need to stand up during the national anthem. But then you have NFL owners that helped fund his campaign run.
Yeah.
Like, that's cognitive dissonance. Like, you don't believe in that cause. Like, it's obvious you don't believe in that cause. So don't fucking front. Don't take no knee before the national anthem. Like,
It was so obvious how, specifically Jerry Jones
All
doing
of
that. It was the
them.
corniest thing.
All
And he's
of
sitting
them.
there with the biggest smile. Oh,
All
I know
of
exactly
them.
where the camera
All
is.
of
It was
them.
corny,
Bob
but-
McNair. All of them are the same. They all the same, man. We are their show horses. We are their hobby, man. Like, whatever. I play video games on the side. I'm taking math classes on the side. It's my hobby. I like to do it, right? That's what they like to do on their side. They like to own a football team. We're a hobby to them. And they don't look at us like human beings. They look at us like I used to say, like,
Those are assets.
I'm an asset. I'm a chess piece, man.
Yeah.
I'm no more, no less. And you ain't never gonna come to my neighborhood and see where I came from. Like, you don't care. And that's what I said. Like, I remember, like, when I was first in the NFL, they used to have these, like, you used to have to do it mandatory, especially when you were younger and you didn't have any clout. You had to, like, mandatory. You had to go to the Boys and Girls Club, and you went to the Boys and Girls Club. You put on your jersey, you put on your Texans polo, and you go out and you play with kids, or you go out and speak to kids, and there's cameras everywhere. And, like, this is when I stopped doing public appearances. This is when I stopped. I stopped doing public appearances because we went to a hospital, and it was cancer patients. We were seeing little kids that were cancer patients, and it was like 7 of us walked in a room, and most of the kids were like, "Oh my God, football players!" It was dope. But then one kid, we walked in the room, and they were like, and you could tell she was just drained. And we walked in the room, didn't know who we were, and we're just like, why are they here? And there was cameras there, and we had balloons, and we were like, "Hey, how you doing?" I feel like a fucking clown, and I was like, "Why am I here? This is the wackest shit ever." Like, it's not that I don't care about this little girl, but I would have not came here if the Texans didn't tell me to come. It's so disingenuous. And I never went again. They were like, "Aaron, you got to get your community." I don't know how to do shit. I was like, "You find me, you do whatever you got to do. I'm not going on
Did they
your
find you?
merit." No, they didn't. They can't. They threatened that shit though. So what I did was I went to that same. I don't want, but this is right. So I went to that same hospital about 6 months later, and I bought all of the kids' DVD players, and that shit lit up there. And I went to go, and then I went to go visit them each individually, and that shit changed their. You can say they lit up because it meant something. It wasn't just fucking forced, and that's why I stopped doing community outreach. It's just whack. It doesn't make you might touch people because of the awe, but like, you don't really hit people that actually need it. And that's what I feel anyway. And I could be wrong, but that's just my personal opinion.
No, I mean, I think that's true. I mean, like, for example, DVD player is a hell of a lot more tangible of like a.
That's when
enjoyable
DVDs
thing.
was popping though. So. Now you go with Apple TV or some shit. But dog, man, it's been a 2-hour conversation.
Oh shit,
That's crazy. It's been a hell of a conversation, especially because I don't know you and you don't really know me, man. That's pretty dope.
It is.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah.
Two strangers can get together and have a great.
Can I ask one more, a little less
shoot,
serious,
yeah,
a little more?
shoot.
I'm curious because you talk about a lot how like you it's your dream to be a star in the NFL. From age 7, right?
Right.
Like not even play, like be a star, right? When did that hit you? Like, was it like when you signed your big contract? Were you, your first time you had your jersey and your pads on? The first time you scored a touchdown? Like what? Like was there a specific moment that you remember?
That I was a star.
Like when did you hit? Like you felt like you like fully accomplished your dream.
Good question. I think that thought never crossed my mind.
Really?
I was taught young that once you think you arrived, you haven't, and so I never felt. I think that's where my humility in that arena came from. Was one, I didn't think I was any better than any fan as far as as far as any microcosmic worldview was concerned. So I just felt like I put my work in here. That's why I'm excelling in this field. But I never felt like I'm here. I did it. There were times where I had a goal and I accomplished that goal. But I never felt like I made it. I still don't feel like that because I don't think there is a it. I'll tell you a little short story. This is when I found out there wasn't an it. I was in a hotel room in New York. I was doing an appearances right after I signed my big deal. And after you sign a big deal, it takes, I think, 2 weeks for your signing bonus to hit. And my signing bonus was, the first check of it was $2 million.
Nice.
Yeah. And it hit So that day I was in New York, it hit, and I opened my bank account because I was checking. I don't know what I was checking. So before that, I was playing for league minimum. So I had seen big checks before, a $20,000 check here, $30,000, which is great money from where I grew up. Like, trust me, trust me, I thought I was rich as hell. But then you see your first real money, like that can change your family, you know? And it was $2 million. I saw $2 million sitting in my bank account. So like the first 30 seconds, I was like, oh my God, I'm fucking rich. Holy shit. And I was just like, what the and my thought was like now what? It didn't do anything. It didn't
Very
change.
nice, sir. Now what?
True story though. It didn't do anything. All it did was provide me with this false sense of security. And that humility, I don't know where it comes from, but I think it comes from my beginnings and how there were nights I didn't eat. I can understand people out here are still struggling. So like my happiness isn't eternal happiness. It's not like I'm not the only person, because like when I see people struggling on the street or I see a homeless man, that fucks with me. How like I always think every time I see somebody homeless, I'm thinking, how did you get there? Either you gave up on yourself or everybody else around you gave up. But like something like what happened? And that shit plagues me. Like I don't know where that comes from, but it comes from. So like I never felt like I made it. I never felt like I've arrived. I always felt like I was just on this journey, and when I die, that's when the last chapter ends. And it never, like, football to me was just a brief, not brief because it was a big part of my life, but it was just a stint in my life where
It's just a chapter.
yeah, it was just a chapter, and now I go on to something else. I know it's hard for people to see because it's like it's the prestige involved with the NFL. But I just never saw myself as that. I just never cared for it. And now I get in Twitter arguments a lot. But like one of them was with like a Tennessee Vol. Like I went to the University of Tennessee.
Yeah.
Recently I had a Tennessee Vol fan talking about like, why don't you care about the university? And I'm like, it's not that I hate the university. It's just like I literally don't care. And it's not like I know that carries a negative connotation. It's like I don't give a fuck about you. No, it's not like that. It's just like I don't wake up and think about what the University of Tennessee is doing. It slips in my mind, and it's the same thing with football. It's like I really don't care. There's so many different interests I have, so many different things I think about, so many things that just affect me on a day-to-day basis that it slips in my mind. I just don't care who wins the game. I really didn't care when I played. I just didn't. Like I'm gonna do the best I can, but like how's it really affecting me like that? It's not. It's just a terrible thing to say, but it is what it is, man.
No, that's real, man.
It is what it is. Right. But man, I appreciate your time. That's a long podcast, man. 2 hours. I didn't think it was gonna do that.
Hey man, I appreciate your time. Thank you for doing this,
man.
Dude.
This
was sweet.
Yeah, for sure, man. It was just kind of the winging it, man. Didn't know what this conversation was gonna go like, but we hit on a lot of dope topics.
I think so, yeah.
I hope people appreciate it. So, if you are a fan of the podcast, man, you know how we end every time.
I do, yeah.
So, we are trying to get Jim Carrey on this motherfucker. Mm-hmm. So, please look in the camera and try to persuade him to come on.
Mr. Carey, we talked about dope shit. You know even more dope shit. Come talk about dope shit.
That's what's up. Now we appreciate you, man. And so if any, let me see your Twitter handle. Are you on Instagram?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. So
okay, so I'm gonna follow you on Instagram too,
please do.
man. So and on Twitter he's at Tate Grealish.
Yeah,
Grealish or Grealish? Grealish. Fuck me, man. I knew I was gonna mess it up. A couple cups in. At Tate TateGrealish. Follow him. Dope cat. I'm about to do the same thing. Whoop, hit the follow button. It's both on Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah, same.
And if you're on Facebook, kill yourself. Right. So much love, man. I appreciate you coming through the Now What podcast, man.
My pleasure, man.
Share, like, and subscribe. Tell your people too.
Oh, you got it.
Much love, man. I appreciate you.